Basically, today I'll be sharing with you guys a very important story about my life, and I don't know whether to say I regret it or I do not regret it, the decisions I took, the steps I took while growing up. Okay, story time. So let's get into the story this time around. Hello, lovelies. I'm back again. It's your favorite girl, M&E. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always coming back to check out my content. And if you're a new subscriber, please try and follow us. You all should please turn on your notification bell to always know anytime we post anything on this page. Thank you, guys. So basically today I'll be sharing with you guys how I found myself in the legal profession, or how I became a lawyer today. Yes, back then in school, oh my god, I wouldn't even want to hear anybody talking about being a lawyer because I so disliked the profession. And maybe now I'm beginning to realize part of the reasons why it seemed like I never loved the profession. Growing up, I've always wanted to study economics. Yes, law has never been in the picture. In my entire life, I've never thought of studying law. But something happened eventually, and anytime I hear people talk about law, I'll be like, you want to go and study that course, so that what will happen? I always try to discourage them. And I can remember back then when I was in SS1, there's this classmate of mine that always wanted to study law, and you see how life is. Eventually she even ended up not studying the law, but anytime she talked about that, I always speak her out of it, telling her what is law, forget it, fascist, lawyers are hungry, blah blah blah. And it was as if I knew, because then I didn't even know all this. And in reality, that's almost okay, not say that's true, because believe me, there's still a whole lot of lawyers out there that are making their millions. Trust me, billions. Like they have lived all their life being lawyers, and they have achieved a whole lot in the legal profession. So let's get back to my story. So when I was in XS1, that's after my JSS3, I moved to a new school, so I was to be placed in a class. And the school, basically, the GNC has to be the one to decide on the class that you'll be placed based on your performance in your junior work, that's your junior secondary. So after all the whole consideration, I was put in a science class. That was a D class. Yes, poor girl like me, I've always wanted to study economics, social science class. I had no business with science. I've never loved science. Then I had, a role model, someone I was always looking up to, and the person actually studied economics. So after I was placed in science class, I started having doubts as to what I will eventually turn out to be in science class, because it seems everybody around me wanted me to be a medical doctor or a pharmacist. All these big courses in the medical line. And me personally, I was always telling myself, oh God, I can't work in a hospital. How much I hate being around the hospital environment. So if I become a medical doctor, how will I survive working in a hospital? Doctors see a whole lot of ill things, and I don't think I would want to place myself in that position. In fact, as it is, even as I have grown now, I don't think like I can take up any cause that has to do with me having to work in the hospital or that, except maybe, difficult situation calls for desperate time. Maybe me doing that, you have to give me another citizenship in another country. Perhaps I might want to try that. So after I was put in the class, after first term, second term, I finally made a decision. No, I can't do this anymore. I would be moving to social science class. I went and met the GNC. I spoke with the GNC. The GNC refused vehemently. Like the GNC said, no, I can't, no way. I can't move to art class because it's not like I'm not doing well in science class. That our students are not intelligent. I shouldn't move to art class. I'm going to art class. I'm going to regret it. Well, whether I regret it, I wouldn't want to answer that. But all those whole stories. And he said, okay, since you are insisting, after I kept on disturbing her, I said, since you are insisting, then we need a consent from your father that, yes, you have to change class. Okay, this thing I'm about to say now is one bad thing I know I did that nearly cost me like 2 academic years in my life. Yes. So I went home, I told my dad accepted. So my dad decided to call our GNC, that's guidance and counselor. I've been saying GNC, but I'm not sure whether I've said the full meaning of GNC. So after my dad was done speaking with her, my dad said, okay, I've accepted. And I was just stay convincing my dad, how can you accept for that kind of thing? You know, all those things. And eventually my dad said, okay, that's a no-no, that's a no-no, that's a no-no. So I told her about what to do. I tried talking with my mom. My mom said it's none of her business because my mom is a kind of, she's a little bit nonchalant about things. She think very hard of solutions, what to do. Because for me, I wasn't going to go back to that science class. That was it for me. In fact, before I even started coming back, I've moved my seat to social science class, just waiting to get my dad consent. After first term, second term, as a science student, I felt like, no, I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend anymore because then it was obvious. Everybody around me wanted me to study medicine and surgery, pharmacy, you know, all these big medical courses. Well, I wouldn't say I regret it, or I wouldn't say I regret not taking their advice initially because, don't worry, we'll get to that stage, you know, think up another option, which was I don't want to say this, but I have to say it. So I eventually went and, you know, begged a friend of mine to write a letter because probably the GNC might have an insight of what my handwriting would look like. So I told the girl what to write. The girl asked me, is your daddy aware of this? I said, yes. And my daddy said I should just write it and give it to the GNC. So after writing, I just signed something that looked like my daddy's signature. I didn't say I forged the signature. I just signed something in place of his signature because my daddy's signature is even too complicated and you yourself will not be able to sign. So when I took it to the GNC saw it and said, okay, after everything I told your dad, and I was just praying for her not to call my dad again to like confirm whether he accepted or not. At that point, that was just my prayer point. So eventually I moved to art class. No, okay, eventually then I moved to social science class. Then in social science class, I started taking courses. You know, social science class is more or less like just the core commerce, geography, and accountancy. I think just all these, you know, commercial courses. That's just the only difference with it and as class. So after my SS2 first term, they gave me results. So I took my results home. I was so scared of showing my parents my result because actually nobody knew at that point in time that I have already changed myself to art class. So I was thinking on how to go about it. I was thinking of, okay, telling them the lie that I wasn't doing well in science class. So GNC now had to finally move me to a social science class because that's like the norm, that when you're in a science class and you're not doing well, then they'll have to move you to an art class. They believe that, okay, so I can carry sciences, perhaps I have a carry art course. So that was how I found myself in social science class. I took home my results. My parents kept on asking me, where's your result, where's your result? And eventually had to go and bring out the results because, you know, it's usually in an envelope sealed. I gave it to him and looking at it, he didn't understand. He said, I thought to be agreed with your GMT that you were not going to move again to social science class. I said, yes, daddy, that is so. And I said, but the courses I'm seeing here are not science courses. What happened? I wanted to lie. I kept quiet. I looked at my mom. My mom knew I've done something wrong. My mom wanted to cover up. So my mom just said, let's eat dinner first. When we are done eating, we'll talk about this. At that point, I felt a little bit relieved. You see, mothers, they have a particular way of saving their children. Because I think my dad reacted with, like, in the heat of the moment, I would have probably gotten one or two scars on my body that up to today I will still even have to show my children that it was my stubbornness or my stupid acts that gave me that scar. But thank God for my mom. So that was how that one passed. So eventually my dad asked me, I told my dad I can't see myself working in a hospital. At first I wasn't even thinking about pharmacy because I didn't know I would have gone for pharmacy courses like pharmacy or the other ones, but I was just thinking of hospital. I know as a child that was the only thing in my head. I can't even think of any other thing, and if you put me in a hospital, believe me, I won't be able to eat, I won't be able to do anything. In fact, I won't even breathe well inside the hospital. So that was just the only thing in my head as at then. Then finally, my dad accepted. I said, okay, fine, since that's the decision I've chosen for myself. So I went back to school because my school is all borders. We were borders in my secondary school. So I went back to school. So for me to come back for second time, my dad said, okay, you see that my decision, I just want you to finish your SS2. Then you will have to repeat SS2 again as a science student. I said, what? He said, yes, because he don't think he accepted to. I said, but dad, you accepted. He said, no, that he thought he accepted, but after thinking about it and after sharing it with his brothers told him that that was a very big mistake and our G&C was right. God, I felt like fainting. I started crying. I was crying. I said, God, how will I explain this to people that I'm repeating SS2? How will I even explain? I was so scared. I was crying. I was thinking about the whole embarrassment, the shame, and everything. So that was now when my mom played a very major role. My mom now came. Everybody was helping me to beg my dad. I know I'm just lucky because one bad or good thing about my dad is that when he makes a decision, it's very, very hard for him to like shift his grounds. Or when I was about going back to school for third term, he now told me I should not go back to school and start thinking about it and not use because of it and say I'm not going to read. That if I do well, very well that term, that it might make him change his mind. I said, if you see the way I read that particular thing, because I was telling myself, you can't afford to mess up, you can't afford to fuck up. Like, I was so dedicated that time, and as God will have it, I still came up top. Like, you know, in my school, there's this thing they usually call best 5, overall 5, and for that particular time, yes, I was like top. So my dad said, okay, since you're also doing well in art class and since it is your dream, your heart desires, I think I won't stress it again. But you always remember I told you this. He now said, was for that your economics you want to study, I want to be sincere with you. You can't study economics because with that certificate, I don't know where you'll be able to work and how lucrative that is in Nigeria. I felt so bad. I tried to tell him, okay, Daddy, see, I know this person studied economics, the person is doing well, I know that person, okay, this is what my role model studied and the person is doing very well. I just felt like I was pouring water inside the basket because I could literally see the water pour down. After everything, I eventually ended up in an arts class, and as God will have it, I graduated as the best graduating art student. And thereafter, I had to hit my dad's advice because they were the ones that told me what to fill in my JAMB form. And you know, the annoying thing was that I just wrote that JAMB once, and in my mind I was telling myself, okay, I'm writing this JAMB from SS3 and I'm writing it from school. Let me just use this law and have an insight of, okay, what it will look like. Then when I come back, I'll know how to convince them for me to probably go for my heart desired course. Lo and behold, that was how I got admission. My dad was like, my mom was like, I should not go. Besides, I've been living in dormitory all this while. I need time to know home, to socialize with people, you know, to learn how to do 1 or 2 things and all before eventually moving into the university. My dad just kept quiet. My dad just came back one day and said, prepare, we are going to market to buy what you use and go back to school. Like, at first, I thought it was a joke, but eventually I realized it was not a joke. And that was how I found myself studying law in the university. And one thing about me is that, in as much as I've taken up something, whether I like it or not, I just have to try and put in efforts to see that that thing comes out very well. And at that point, I wouldn't want to disappoint my dad and all. So eventually, I had to do the course. One thing I hate in my life is failure. In fact, I can't even fail just to prove something to you or to tell you that I don't like something because I don't like it. So eventually, I was able to manage myself throughout the whole of my university. After my university, I enrolled into law school. After law school, NYSC. After NYSC, then yes, I was called to bar in the year 2019, and since then, I have been practicing law. That is that about law. But on a very good day, I'm telling people the story or my events planning and management story. Yeah, but for today is just for the story of why and how I am in the legal profession today. Whether I regret it, I do not know. But the truth of the matter is that maybe I would have more money than I do if I had studied any of those medical courses that, you know, they were preferring for me. But there's also another possibility that I would not have done well in that field, or let's say academically, the way I have been doing in the legal field. Because the truth of the matter is that since I have been in this arts class, art line, academically to an extent, I would say yes, I've been doing fine. I don't know if I would have been this good if I was in the medical field, and probably if I was in the medical line. I doubt if I would have had time to think of, learning events planning and management, or even enrolling with a company to learn it, or even trying it as a full-time business. So guys, that's the story of my life. So guys, in our next video, I'll be sharing with you guys the regrets, or I'll be sharing with you guys my regrets as a lawyer and things I wish I knew before studying law in the university.